Welcome to Tips from Trestle. This podcast is dedicated to discussing the senior living industry with a unique focus on food, hospitality, and leadership. I'm your host, Aaron Fish. As a 25-year veteran of the hospitality industry, I've focused my work on creating exceptional experiences for the customers we serve. My goal for this podcast? Educate, inform, and inspire leaders in senior living to bring food and hospitality to the front of mind in our industry. Let's bring the innovative and passionate spirit of hospitality to everything that we do for the residents, families, guests, and employees we serve each and every day. So what are we waiting for? Let's get to it. My guest today on Tips from Trestle is Milton McGowian. He's the Vice President of Resident Services at Sharon Towers at SouthPark in Charlotte, North Carolina. He earned a certification from the National Restaurant Association as a Foodservice Management Professional and a certification from the Association of Nutrition and Foodservice Professionals as a CDM CFPP. Milton is also an alumni fellow for the Larry Minnix Leadership Academy at Leading Age National and is the chair for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, as well as a member of the Professional Development Committee for the Association of Nutrition and Food Service Professionals. Milton holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration and an MBA from Liberty University. He's currently a doctoral candidate at Liberty, studying nonprofit leadership and management in business administration. Milton possesses a passion for seniors and ensures every senior has an excellent quality of life and every employee has a chance for development, which is what we're going to talk about today. So, Milton, thanks for being here today.
My pleasure, and thanks for having me.
So, I'm excited to talk to you today because we were just recently at the Senior Dining Association conference, Synergy Conference, and we did a panel together, and you spoke about something that triggered in me like this aha moment about how we look at everything. And so I want to talk to you specifically about work-life integration. It was a phrase that you used during our panel discussion that we didn't really get into a lot. But I know this is something you're passionate about. It's something you've got a lot of experience with. And so I want to get into it. So let's talk a little bit. Tell me what work-life integration is and how you define it.
So work-life integration is something that I am passionate about, Aaron. And work-life integration is exactly what it says. It's when you integrate, you unite work and life. In the past, we talked about work-life balance, and we're kind of moving away from that and going to work-life integration. So if I wanted to define work-life integration, I would probably say that it's a realization that work and life are meant for each other. And I would also say that both are incomplete without the other. That's just a fact of life. We have to have both. Integration of two different domains can be beneficial to both domains. And uniting work and life gives both equal rights. So that's pretty much like the textbook definition of work-life integration.
So when we're talking about work-life integration, obviously this is kind of a transition from work-life balance, that kind of terminology. And so how did we get there, right? And from your research and your experience and the things that you're doing, how do we get from work-life balance to work-life integration?
So, work-life balance was great when it first came out. Everybody was excited. We're like, yeah, we're going to get work-life balance. We'll be able to spend time with our families, spend time with our children, and we'll still have work. And this is what's going to happen. And work-life balance would have been successful, but the issue was the management of various organizations didn't keep it going. So they started out at the beginning with work-life balance, and it was great. So there was autonomy, there was flexibility, there were schedule changes, and people were able to spend time with their families and have a work-life balance. But as you know, Aaron, a balance means that you're going to take from another area. So if you balance something out, something has to give. So if you have too much over here and you balance it out, you have to take from the other. So what happened was the balance didn't work because either family life was taken away from work and the boss didn't like it, or the opposite. The family got upset because there was no time, to spend together because you were taken away and doing too much work. So the balance does not work. And that's how we got to integration, because we wanted to integrate. We wanted to unite the two. We didn't want to say, well, take from this one and take from the other one. So, after a little probing, we figured out that people were actually being punished for taking work-life balance. So for example, okay, I'm going to utilize the flexibility. I'm going to work from home. Well, people were getting punished. Oh, I'm going to work my 8 hours and go home and not work overtime. That's another balance of the life and taken away from the work. So people they felt like the perception was they were being punished. And when it came time for promotions and it came time for, people to get recognition and accolades, they felt like they didn't get any of that because they were not a team player. The people who worked 50 hours a week and the people who came in and they were aggressive with their work style and they stayed all the time and they didn't work from home, those are the people that got promotions and they got raises. So work-life balance didn't work because people they felt like they were being shortchanged. And the work-life integration with flexible work arrangements allows for people to take part and also not feel like they're being, shortchanged or perceived as not being a part of the team. And the only way it's going to work is the management has to be fully on board. It's a cultural change and everybody has to be a part of it. So we got to work-life integration because the balance doesn't work. You take it from another. And also it wasn't well supported because the other employees felt like that people weren't being a strong part of the team.
Yeah, it feels to me like work-life balance really became more of like a catchphrase or like, just jargon for, or code even for, we're not going to work you to death, but we still expect you to work, right? Like you're going to be able to go home, you're going to be able to get a day or two off and that kind of a thing. But you're right. It really feels like it became an adversarial thing with other employees. And I know that one of the things we talk about in senior living is, especially in the food service and hospitality portions of it, it's like, if you work in restaurants, you're working 60 hours a week, you're doing late nights, you're working weekends. We talk about work-life balance, quote unquote, because you can get some relief from that, but still be able to do what you love, that passion of cooking and serving. And so, but I feel like we get away from that. And that's where that work-life integration piece that you keep talking about comes in. And so, I feel like this is a newer thing, but I'm guessing the stigmas that you talked about around work-life balance and the Great Resignation and COVID and the pandemic are really pushing this forward faster. So how do those pieces kind of bring this to the front for all of us as we're going forward in senior living?
I think it gave team members and the workforce a chance to reevaluate. They wanted to reevaluate. This is a big change that happened. It was very dynamic. So when the change happened, team members and the workforce said, you know what? I'm going to reevaluate and see where I need to be. I'm going to ask for certain things. I'm not just going to settle for the status quo and go back to work. And work-life balance, it could have been successful, and it's just one of those things where, the senior leadership didn't, stay on top of it. So for example, work-life balance was meant for schedule flexibility. It was meant for management support, job autonomy. And if the senior leadership had paid attention and stayed on top of that, the work-life balance could have moved in a direction and been so much successful, although the integration is better and maybe we would have to change that term, but at least we were to start off on the right foot. And the work-life balance also came about because of work-family conflict. Families were complaining about, the wife or the husband not being home and staying and working all sorts of hours. So that's how work-life balance came into the limelight, because of work-family conflict. And we wanted to resolve that conflict.
I feel like, sorry, I was just going to add, I feel like work-life balance, kind of, the idea of it was for every employee, but it really almost kind of stopped at the management level, right?
Yes.
Like there's not work-life balance if you're an hourly employee or if you're a server in a dining room, because you've got to be here for these meal services and these meal periods. And so you don't get flexibility. Your version of work-life balance is, well, you get to be off 2 days in a row, or you get to take a break at the same time every day, or, there's these, yes, we're only going to work you 8 hours a day because that's our version of balance, but there's not really, like you said, true flexibility, true like partnership with those frontline employees.
So I think when it comes to frontline employees, you're spot on. So here's how you take care of your frontline employees and your entry-level employees. So you have to think outside the box. You have to say, okay, so if they can't take part of some of the things that the management is taking part of, let's create things that would make an integration or a balance for them. So for example, a daycare at the facility. So that would be very helpful. That would allow them to not have issues with daycare, and they can come to work and work the hours you need them to work. So that's one point. Also, I like to think outside the box, even when it comes to transportation, offering Lyfts and Uber services to kind of help the employees. So even though it's not so much of, a flexibility, it's more of an assistance, because you're right, Aaron, the frontline employees need different things. It's not the same. It's not apples to apples. The manager might need to work from home. The manager might need to have a flexible schedule, but the frontline employee might need more than that. So we have to dive deep and figure out exactly what they need. And in my experience from working in hospitality, I found that the childcare and the transportation are two of the biggest things that employees need. So that would be their integration. You would do things for them so they don't have that pressure or that stressor in their work, and hence they could come to work and do a better job and not have call outs and really support the team. And listen, work-life balance practices do not necessarily yield the outcomes that it was set out to achieve. We wanted to achieve a certain outcome with work-life balance. It didn't happen. And the reason is, like I mentioned before, a lack of support from management. We have to have the support from the upper level, otherwise it's not going to work. Fear of utilizing the practices that were given to us would be perceived as lack of commitment. Oh, Milton's not committed because he only worked 8 hours today. Milton is taking advantage of that work-life balance and spending time with his wife. So he's not that team player. So when that promotion comes on, we're going to give it to somebody who works 10 hours, 12 hours a day and works 6 days a week. So that's the reason why that process failed.
Yeah, I've definitely seen it, in the course of my career where, we tell people, there's going to be balance. We can let you do this. You'll be able to do that. And then it turns out exactly like you say, the managers are like, well, hey, Susie's awesome. She's here. She picks up shifts. She does whatever. We should give her the opportunity, right? And sometimes it's not even the managers not wanting to support it. It's just they're not even thinking about it. And I love the integration and the things you're talking about, because balance had nothing to do with how you support someone, right? It's just, right, we're going to give you 8 hours of work. We'll give you 8 hours at home. Then that was what it kind of felt like. But integration comes through this idea, like you said, of partnering with the employees and figuring out what can we do to make them successful in both areas. So I love that. And it kind of leads me to want to, because I know this is something you're working on with your organization, which is embedding it in the culture, right? We kind of talked a little bit about that earlier. And so what kinds of things are you guys doing there at Sharon Towers to start getting work-life integration in your culture?
So one of the main things in order to embed it in your culture is you must have the top level support. So we have a CEO, Angela Rigsby, and then we have a CFO, which is Chuck Gaskins, and the 2 vice presidents. We are embedding it in our culture to allow individuals to practice work-life integration. So I'll give you a few examples on how this is achieved, so individuals and organizations can maybe look at their processes. So first of all, we have 6 guiding principles: service, excellence, reverence, stewardship, unified beauty. We have to follow those 6 guiding principles for our culture in order for everybody here at Sharon Towers to work together, to coexist, and to give our residents a great quality of life. So that's where it starts. Starts with the 6 guiding principles. And we believe in those principles. And every decision we make here at Sharon Towers involves those 6 guiding principles. So in relation to work-life integration here at Sharon Towers, you have to have prerequisites. So I'll give you a few prerequisites that organizations should utilize in order to achieve their goal. So first, we need to have flexible work arrangements. And the flexible work arrangements can't be, looked upon as something bad, like I mentioned earlier. That's why the balance didn't work. So if you have a flexible work arrangement, which could be, a fixed schedule, it could be autonomy, it could be teleworking, working from home, if you're able to do that. So once you have the flexible work arrangement, that's the beginning of implementing your work-life integration. So the next thing is perceive usability and flexibility of these arrangements. Because believe it or not, Aaron, you can put things into place, but if people don't feel comfortable or like they could use them without being looked down upon by others, they won't utilize them. So you have to have that perceived usability of the flexible work arrangements. And also you got to have the technology so people can work from home. You have to have the proper setup. You can't say, hey, you know what? You can work from home. We're going to do work-life integration. And then you don't have the proper technology, and then they can't get set up. And also people sometimes feel like they're shunned when they work from home. They work from home a week, they come in a week. People go, where you been? Oh, I was working from home. And they go, oh, must be nice. So you got to practice that culture where people are treated the same. It's like me with online school. I'm still a student. I'm just going online. I don't want to be shunned for not being in the brick and mortar. So I want people to, understand that. Also, organizational resources. How are we supporting this work-life integration? What are we giving from the organization to say, hey, we want you to be a part of this and we want this to happen. So we're going to give you top level support. And then also employee retention policies. You want to ensure that all of that's embedded, and also motivation. If you motivate people to be a part of work-life integration, it'll work and people will be proud to do it. But it starts with the leadership, and it starts with allowing them to do it without being talked down to or shunned. So those are the prerequisites that we use so our employees can have that work-life integration here at Sharon Towers.
Yeah, I think the emphasizing the leadership buy-in is so important, right? Because when you look back at, like I mentioned with work-life balance, the leadership were fine with it for managers, but they're looking at the frontline employee. As you were talking about like technology, the first thing that popped into my mind was, well, if you've got a department assistant in food and beverage or a hospitality or a concierge role that's, taking work orders and answering the phone, like, does that person have to be on site, right? They don't necessarily have to, now maybe they have to work a front desk and they do some shifts in person, but at the same time, it's very easy for that person to be able to work in, remote. So I love that. I love that you've got some guiding principles and you've got that focus on embedding it in your culture. But as we look at food service and hospitality, right? So a lot of those are roles that you can't do remotely, right? I think, the normal person working like a management or working maybe in like financial services, they can work remote. They can, do their work at different times. What we do requires some specifics around the, I've got to be here. We've got to execute at this time. We've got to do these things in person. And so when you think about work-life integration in hospitality, what are some of the things that you've seen be successful? What are some of the things that we can talk about and we can share with the listeners of, hey, you're in hospitality, but you still need to do this. So I'd like to talk a little bit more about some of the tangible things you guys are doing and looking at around specifically hospitality employees.
Sure. So, there's a couple of things. So the first part has to do with scheduling. So as a work-life integration, we know we can control that off the bat because Aaron, you're right. We have people that have to show up to a brick and mortar place and perform a service, but we also can think outside the box and be different and be innovative. So I'll give you a couple examples. So let's say we have a cook that works 5 days a week, 40 hours a week. I can say to that cook, okay, so you're going to cook 4 days a week, but on the 5th day, I'm actually going to have you work from home. You're going to develop recipes. You're going to, you're going to look over the inventory. You're going to do some training and you do all that from home. They're still on the clock. They still get paid. Although it's not that 100%, autonomy that we would give maybe somebody who's an office worker, it does show that we care. We want to make a difference and say, hey, we can split some of your time and you can work from home. So when you come in the next day, you'll show work that you created new recipes, that you went through and you reviewed the training log and you reviewed the training program that we wanted to work on. You looked over a policy that we needed. And all that could be done from home. You don't have to come in to do that. So you have to strike while the iron's hot. You have to take advantage of that. If you have certain positions where people can review training material, discover recipes. I need you to write 3 menus and work on the cycle menu. You don't have to come to work to write a cycle menu. You can do that from home. And then the other days, yeah, you'll come in and cook because, we're serving human beings and we're in the service industry. But if you play it that way, you allow that employee to go, you know what, this is awesome. I'm going in the office 4 days. I'm taking 1 day to do stuff at home. And then maybe 1 day it'll be like, 3-2. You might get to the point where you're only coming in 3 days. So those are just ways in hospitality that you could offer to your employees to take advantage of that. You have to look at the scope of the work, look at the job description. Everything is not about showing up and clocking in. You can do a lot of things from home, even though you're in hospitality. You can't do the 100%, but at least we can make an effort to say, hey, you know what, we're going to try this, we're going to give this a shot. So those are some of the things that we're looking at doing. And also, Aaron, when people do come to work and if there's training and things that they can actually do in an office, we'll put them there. And again, they're not home, but they're away from like the kitchen and they're away from the hustle and bustle. And those are things that we want to try to be innovative.
Yeah, the other piece of scheduling, I love the idea of just go home and work on some projects and do some training. You don't have to be sitting in front of a computer in a kitchen or in a dining room to do that. That's amazing. The other question, and I'm curious to see if you guys are doing anything like this, in my previous life, one of the scheduling things I worked on was coming up with schedules that are really flexible and using technology to let people work 2-hour or 4-hour or 3-hour increments. Maybe your shift on Monday is 6 to 10 and 3 to 7 because you're a college student and you need to go to class. Or, maybe you're a working mom and your kids are at school. And so you want to work the 10 to 3 shifts on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, but on the weekends, you can work a regular 8-hour shift. Are you guys experimenting with anything like that and any technologies that you're using for something along those lines?
So in my former life, we utilize a program called Hot Schedules, and we would allow employees to pick up times and kind of say when they were available and put it in. So what we're doing currently at Sharon Towers is we are making scheduling changes, but we're involving the staff members into what they would like to work. So it's like one of those things, what's important to you, the witty. So they tell us what's important. They tell us what days will be better for them. So we're allowing them to have a piece of the decision-making process when it comes to scheduling. We're not full on what you're speaking about, but I like what you're saying. And like I said, in my former life, we say, hey, if you want to switch a shift, just put it on Hot Schedules and somebody will pick it up, or put in when you want to work. Hey, I'm available here. And everything was done with technology on the app, and they would do it on their phone, and everybody would get their schedule on their phone when we put it out. I love what you're saying. I think that allows employees to want to come in. They would do a great job for you. They want to be at your facility. It's a cultural thing, and they trust and believe in what you're doing. So I love that because it allows people to say, you know what, I'm going to go in and work a few hours. I'll go home and do homework for a few hours, and I'll come back to work. Basically, I'm making my own schedule. Who doesn't love to say those words? Hey, I make my own schedule. So I love that, and I think that's something that we're going to look more into. But as of right now, Sharon Towers is allowing employees to be a part of the decision-making process when it comes to their schedule.
That's awesome. So, we talked a little bit about, supporting, frontline employees with transportation and with childcare, and here with flexible scheduling and training and those kinds of things. Kind of as we wrap up here, are there any other items or ideas like that as you're integrating work-life integration into a hospitality worker's day-to-day?
Yeah, I think when it comes to just the employee, we want to offer them things that would help them out. So we have a grocery program here that we allow employees to order from at a discounted rate. They can save a lot of money. They don't have to go to the grocery store. They can order and pick up the food. That's just something that helps them as far as, and that's integrating life and work, right? Because shopping at a grocery store is part of your life, right? So now you're integrating that work because you can do it at work. So that's something that employees can take advantage of. And also, I think it's, to the point of employees being with us and staying with us and not becoming those boomerang employees. I think that that's something that is really happening. over 70% of employees who've left the workforce due to COVID are going back to their previous jobs. So because of the things we offer, the flexibility of scheduling and the amenities that we offer here at Sharon Towers, we're starting to see that boomerang effect where employees are coming back, and the ones that left just to go seek an opportunity, we give them an opportunity to come back and they do better because they've learned skills. So Sharon Towers offers a lot in reference to resources that support employees. Human resources is involved in that. And we also have a retention, talent, and development director. Her name is Chanel Jenkins. She spends a lot of her work on ensuring employees are taken care of, that we're offering them resources, that we're communicating to them. So yeah, those are some of the things that we're doing, and we hope to do more and integrate more of those things into our process, because we think it's important to retain the employees we have, because the Great Resignation has hurt all of us.
Yeah, no, the cost of replacing employees is astronomical, and I don't think people think about that when they look at turnover. So I love everything you guys are doing. So we're out of time. I mean, it flew by so fast. So Milton, thanks so much for being on Tips from Trestle. How can people contact or follow you?
So I am on LinkedIn. I'm also on Facebook. And if you go to sharontowers.org, you can go to our website and read all about Sharon Towers, and you can meet all of our team members on the leadership team. Just go to sharontowers.org and click careers if you want to look for jobs, and then click on my name if you want to learn more about me.
Awesome. Milton, this was great. I love this work-life integration conversation. We need to really impress upon the industry. This is the way to do it going forward. So thanks so much for sharing what you're doing, your knowledge, your expertise, and we'll talk to you soon. So thanks for being here.
My pleasure.
So there you have it, another one in the books. Thanks again, everybody, for listening. You can follow or direct message me on LinkedIn, where I'm always commenting and posting about food, hospitality, and leadership for the senior living industry. Or give me a follow on Twitter at AHFish or Instagram at AaronHFish. And check out my company, Trestle Hospitality Concepts, at www.trestlehospitalityconcepts.com. I'm your host, Aaron Fish, and this has been another episode of Tips from Trestle.